Hi, how are you? Hope you're well. So today I am here to start a reading challenge. In November of 2024, I made a video titled All the Books I Want to Read and Why I Never Will. If you haven't watched that, please do. It's linked down below, and then come back to this video. Thank you. Today, I'm gonna be tackling some of those books because there are a few on there that I'm gonna give them a shot because I either have started the series or I want to just know why. Like, what about the hype? Or just maybe even challenge myself in terms of like trigger warnings and be like, let's see if I'm just scared or if these trigger warnings are actually too much for me. That is what we are doing today. On to the first book of this challenge. The first book that we will be doing in this little challenge is none other than Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. So last year for the first time, I read Fourth Wing. I didn't make a reading vlog on it. I was like neck deep in a reading slump and I did not feel like committing to that vlog. I quite enjoyed it. I didn't want to. I'll be very honest. I was very sad that I liked it, but I did. It was interesting. It was simple enough to not feel scared to committing to it as much as I did before having started Iron Flame, Fourth Wing. But Iron Flame is an entire beast on its own. I was more scared to start Fourth Wing because of Iron Flame than because of Fourth Wing, because that book is just so ridiculously big that I'm terrified. And then also the fact that some people loved it, some people hate it. I put it on hold at the library when I first read Fourth Wing and it's finally coming through to me. So we're going to be listening to it and we're going to be seeing how I feel about it. Don't worry, this will be spoiler free. I'll either check in halfway or when I'm finished. I am terrified, so. Hi. So I finished Iron Flame, which went interestingly, and by finished, I'm going to correct myself and say that I DNF'd it. And I ended up DNFing it at about 29%, which was just past 8 hours into the book. And the reason that I DNF'd this was because, to be incredibly honest, I just didn't really care about anything that was happening. I felt mostly bored, and it got to the point where picking up the audiobook felt more like a chore than something exciting to look forward to, which for me, when it gets to that point, it's always a problem because reading should never be a chore. The only time reading should feel like a chore realistically is if you're doing homework or reading something for a class or for work or whatever it might be. And because it felt this way, I checked out during a lot of the book as well. So I was just a little confused all of the time and it just made for a not great reading experience. So I thought I'm just gonna put it down. 8 hours is a significant amount of time. I've read books with less hour time, so I didn't want to continue it. To be honest, I don't know if I will ever come back to this series. I think that will be a very in the moment decision where if I feel like it and I do it, I do it. If I don't, I don't. I don't have plans to necessarily. I don't think it was necessarily a bad book. I just wasn't very interested in it. And then before I continue with my thoughts, I did hear someone else, I don't remember who it was. I don't remember if it was on TikTok or if it was on YouTube. However, I did hear someone say that they felt like this should have been a YA book and the spicy scenes were just put in to be adult books. And I do agree with that. It felt sometimes a bit out of place and just kind of strange, and even in Fourth Wing it felt like it was taking away from the actual plot a little bit. So for me, I wasn't the biggest fan of that, unfortunately. I genuinely felt like the conflict between Xaden and Violet was kind of stupid. Like, I understand why she was mad at him. However, in the grand scheme of things, is it that serious? Especially compared to the other problems that they have, is it that serious? You know what I mean? I guess it just felt quite juvenile, I guess you could say, which bothered me. I'm obviously trying to do this spoiler free, so I won't say what it was, but the conflict between them within that first 29% was just annoying. And I know a lot of people talked about how Xaden's character completely changed and how they hated him at the end of Iron Flame. I obviously don't know why, but if it's the same conflict that they hate him over that I was reading about in the first 30%, it's like, it wasn't that serious, and I thought it was quite silly. And in general, again, I wouldn't necessarily say this is a bad book. However, I got bored. It didn't interest me. And you know what? I'm going to say it's too long. It simultaneously felt like nothing was happening and everything was happening, and it was too long. So on to the next one. I think it might be the final one as well. So no, it's not the final one. It's not the final one. Hi. So I did actually already finish the next book in this little challenge. That book is Our Crooked Hearts by Melissa Albert. And I ended up actually binging it in one day just because it was one of those days where I put in my headphones, started the audiobook, and started playing a phone game and just did that for 4 straight hours and listened to the book on 2 times speed, and it was finished. So yeah, it wasn't intentional, but it is what happened. And I did end up giving it 3.25 stars. So why I picked this book is this was obviously in the All the Books I'll Never Read video, and for this reason I picked this book because it sounded interesting and it was recommended by a YouTuber who I have very similar tastes to. However, I read The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert and I ended up DNFing it because I checked out the entire time and I thought it was quite boring, and it was one of those books that felt like more of a chore to listen to than I actually enjoyed. But I did want to give her a second shot because I heard good things about this one, and honestly I think my opinion's kind of solidified on Melissa Albert. I don't think she's an author for me personally. This book was just kind of middle of the ground, middle of the road. I forget what the saying is, but mid for me. It wasn't bad by any means, and the writing style is decently good. However, it just didn't click with me. Much like The Hazelwood, I was very intrigued at the beginning by the plot, and then I just lose interest because the writing style the author uses fails to capture me. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I can't put a finger on why, but this has happened twice now where at the beginning I'm very invested, give it an hour into the audiobook, I'm completely checked out and I don't care anymore. It's such a shame because I really enjoy the premises of her books and I want to like her, and I do think that she is a good author. I don't click with it, and it's very unfortunate for me. And this is definitely a me problem. Like, this is not on the author at all. So I definitely still recommend this to anybody who is interested in reading it. I think she did a good job at executing the premise. However, read the blurb before you go into it. I didn't read the blurb of this one. Like I said, it was recommended. I heard what it was about, but that was maybe 2 years ago or a year ago, and I completely forgot. I liked the mystery, and it was a very fun journey to go along with the characters, and the dual timeline, dual POV made the book very interesting as well. It felt like 2 mysteries happening at once, but they tied in together. It was just very interesting. I really liked the reveal at the end of the book. I thought that was really fun. And in general, yeah, the plot was interesting. It's a modern witchy book. So it's categorized as a fantasy mystery thriller young adult book. However, this definitely feels horror-ish. It feels like a summer horror-ish book. It's not scary, but it has very creepy vibes, missing people, stuff like that. So it's definitely a great book if you're in the mood for something kind of dark in the summertime. I do think that the plot was quite complex in a good way. It kept it interesting and it kept me on my toes throughout the parts that I paid attention to. So yeah, overall, all the bad things that I have to say is on me. It's not on the book. So if this sounds interesting to you, it's a witchy book. Her mother goes missing, she needs to find her, and strange things are happening and dead rabbits are being left at their house. It's a mess in a good way. So if you think it's interesting, I would definitely recommend reading it. It was a good time. Unfortunately, Melissa Albert is not an author for me, so that really sucks. We do have one more book for this video. So let's just go ahead and talk about that. So the next book and the final book that I will be reading for this challenge, which I said I would never read, is The 7-Year Slip. So the reason I didn't want to read this one is because it has to do with time travel, and if you watched my Reading Tropes I Hate, it's linked down below if you want to watch it, by the way. It's a fun video. If you watch that, you know that time travel and time loop tropes are some of my least favorite tropes to read about because I just find them incredibly repetitive, no matter how interesting the plot might be. There is just something about being stuck in the same day or going back in time. It just does not click with me. I'm not a sci-fi girly. Nothing sci-fi usually ever captures my attention. It usually sounds quite boring. And so, despite the fact that I've heard so many wonderful things about this book, I didn't want to pick it up because it's time travel, and I was like, I'm not going to like it. However, I do know that this author has released 3 books: The Dead Romantics, The 7-Year Slip, and then a novel love story. I really want to read a novel love story, and I really want to read The Dead Romantics as well, but I do know that The 7-Year Slip is her most well-renowned book, and I was thinking of making this video anyway, so I thought, why not start with the book that scares me the most? That is the book that I will be reading next. There's still probably a 2 to 3 week wait on the library hold, which sucks. I've waited maybe 2 months at this point already, but there's nothing I can do. So I'm going to wait for the library to give it to me, and then I'm going to read it, and once I've read it, I will be back with my review. Hi, so I've officially finished the final book for this video, and it went so much differently than what I was expecting. I ended up reading it in an entire day. I listened to it probably on 2.15 times speed, and I finished a 10-hour audiobook in 4 hours and 30 minutes. And I didn't mean to finish it. I just got halfway, felt very invested, and then wanted to just keep going, and so I worked my day around that, and I just binged the entire book, and I ended up giving it a whopping 4.5 stars. I went into this book truly thinking I was going to hate it because I don't like time travel, I don't really like contemporary romances anymore, and I honestly just thought this book is setting me up for failure, and somehow it completely shocked me, and I completely understand the hype around it and why everybody loves it so much. I will be honest, it was a slow start for me. It was only at the 60-ish% mark that I felt truly invested in this book. I started to get invested halfway, and then at the 60% mark, it kind of solidified it for me a little bit. And by the end, I was bawling my eyes out. First of all, let me just talk about the time travel. Was not nearly that bad. I think because it's such a unique concept of just the actual apartment time travels, it didn't really even feel like time travel sometimes. It more so felt like sometimes she had a roommate, sometimes she didn't. But yeah, it did not bother me at all because once again, the concept was very unique. So I'm very relieved about that. I don't think it changed my mind on time travel at all though. But anyway, the romance was truly beautiful. I loved watching the characters kind of grow together as they got older. I think like one of the scary things about being in a relationship is knowing that there is a chance that as you get older, you might grow apart instead of growing parallel, and watching characters get older and grow up and thinking that they grew apart, but realizing that they didn't even grow parallel, they grew closer together because they just are better suited for each other post 7 years, was just truly a very beautiful thing to see, and watching them work through the changes that they went through was just very wonderful. And I almost want to say it felt kind of vulnerable because again, like I said, every person that is in a long-term relationship probably has that in the back of their mind where it's like, well, I hope we continue to grow together and parallel to each other rather than apart, and that's not something you can really control. And so reading a book about that happening and watching them work through that was to me a very beautiful story to read about, and I really liked that aspect of the romance. Like, it had that emotional feeling that you get from Emily Henry and Abby Jimenez books that I personally really love, because it feels like it's so much more than just just a smut book. No offense, I'm not trying to hate on smut books. I just don't personally like them. So I do love stories like this one, and books like these are the reason I'll continue to pick up contemporary romance books, even though I'm a fantasy girly. And then of course there was the depiction of grief, which I think was very well done. And I completely understand Clementine's struggle to deal with the death of her aunt. It actually kind of like hit me in the heart a little bit because I lost my aunt a few years ago. And out of all of the family members that I've lost in my life, she was the one that I was closest to, and I miss her. We're not talking about her. But yeah, watching her deal with that grief was very cathartic almost, and I felt that the author handled the topic very well, especially with her aunt passing due to suicide. That was very difficult to read through. I'll be very honest, that's one of those topics where I tend to avoid it because I just find it very difficult to read through, and I didn't read the trigger warnings. That's on me. So I do wish that I'd been more mentally prepped for it, because like when I found out, I was like, oh no. And it's largely one of the reasons why I ended up crying so much at the end. However, I do think that the subject was handled with a lot of care and empathy and sensitively. And it's one of those things where it's like, even someone such as myself that is sensitive to content about that, it is okay to read through. It's just difficult. And I think even people that aren't sensitive to that content would probably get very emotional, because it was just like very well done. Especially when you read the author's note at the end, you could feel the personal touches that went into the creation of her aunt and her passing and the grief that comes with it. And so in general, it was truly a very beautiful book. It was a very emotional book that I was not expecting. I only finished it last night, so I haven't even really had time and separation from the book, which is why I'm still kind of emotional talking about some of it. Probably going to cut those pieces out though. But yeah, I fear I must go grab a physical copy, and I definitely will be rereading this at some point in my life. Maybe when I need a good cry, I will. But this is the most successful book in this video, and I'm so excited to give The Dead Romantics and A Novel Love Story a go as well. She's a very good writer, and I'm happy that in addition to Emily Henry and Abby Jimenez, I can now add Ashley Poston to my rotation, because sometimes you just want a little bit of a break, a dose of reality, but still want to feel something. And I think they all fall into the category of being lit ficky romance authors, with that perfect balance of like, here is the rom-com that you're looking for, but there is also substance to this book. And I really loved it. I have nothing bad to say. I think if the first half gripped me a bit more, this would have been 5 stars instead of 4.5. So yeah, this just went very well, and I'm very happy that I decided to pick this book up and give her a shot. I don't know, I can't wait to keep reading. If you read any of the books in this video, please let me know what you thought of them, if you like them, especially Iron Flame. Please let me know if it gets better, if I DNF'd it too early, like what's going on there, because I don't know. I might have to watch a spoilery summary to find out what I missed, but it's fine. So let me know if you like me or my videos. I really appreciate a like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye.